Hello everyone, this is Tech Bites with Ron Nutter again with the next installment. Now this one we're going to have to do a little bit of planning, and I know it's not everyone's favorite subject, but what I'm hoping to get accomplished this time is walk you through some steps, do a little planning, so that way when you got to go to the spouse and say, hey, I'd like to go do this, that you can show you've thought it out, you've got a plan, and plus it will help you decide what you really want to do and how you're going to do it, because you don't want to try to do this all at once. Trust me, you'll be unboxing, you'll be trying to get everything up and running, and there's some things that we've simply got to look at. And we'll touch on a few of them briefly today. Now, the first thing I'm going to suggest you do, I'm going to shift over here to a little Google spreadsheet that I've worked up. And what you're going to see is this just a very rudimentary layout, and your spreadsheet's probably going to be a little bit different than mine, but you see across the top of the spreadsheet where we've got the rooms listed there, and you can either have them across the top or on the sides, whatever works best for you. And then we start going through the different options. That really drop me down here just a little bit, and that'll help. And you can see the different devices. Now, it's going to be important on some of these to have a distinction. And you'll see as you go through this and start figuring out the different devices that you want to use and that we'll be covering in the coming weeks. Lamps. You may or may not want to have some of the lamps automated, and there's ways you can do that. You can put in a replacement smart bulb. If you've got some tungsten bulbs you're trying to use up, there is a company that I'm waiting for their delivery of products right now called Sonoff, S-O-N-O-F-F, that has an interesting way where you can retrofit just about any lamp or some small appliances. There is a current limitation that you'll need to kind of be thinking about. And for the most part, I would say don't worry about the small appliances and stuff right away. First start off with the light bulbs, the outlets, and the switches. And there's ways that can all be handled. Now, ceiling fans is another thing. There are some newer ceiling fans that have remote control functionality built into them, and that will give you an option on what to do. Meanwhile, depending on how it's wired, you can, or you may be able to, let me rephrase that, have a way of automating or some or all of the fan. It may be just something as simple as the light bulb, and then depending on how it's wired, you may have separate control over the fan motor. Now, if it's an all or nothing situation, and now this is where it might be a compromise, you can have the wall switch control the light and the fan motor on the ceiling fan, but have a smart bulb in there that you can have separate control over. Now, that means you may have to manually switch the motor on and off. That's another option. There is another company I found that has a device, for lack of a better description, that just plugs right in over the light switch. You don't have to get into any of the wiring. So especially for those of you who rent or are not comfortable with going in behind the wall plate of a fixture, that's another option to look at. And hopefully we'll have some of those in the coming weeks. So that's an option as well. Now, while you're doing this inventory, and I wanted to briefly touch on one thing, you may have seen a device like this. Now, this is one from Tacklife. There are several different outlet testers out there, and you'll see the link for this one in the description notes. What this one is different because it will test the GFCI outlet. So especially when you're in rooms where there are different outlets, and you'll be able to readily spot them they'll have like two little buttons between and the different outlets that are on that plate. And it's what they call GFCI outlets, or ground, I'll probably get this wrong, but ground fault interrupter or interceptor. I've heard several different descriptions used. And this is so in case water happens to get near it or on it, it will sense very quickly where there's power going to ground that probably shouldn't have, and it will immediately cut it off, supposedly within seconds. So this will help test that. While you're going through, go through every outlet in your house. That's a good way to spend a couple hours, trust me, because, and I'm going to show you some pictures and showing you why that you need to think about that. Now, I went through 2 outlets, and I deliberately keep one in my house that's wired wrong, just so when I'm testing things like this that I can see. Now, here's what it looked like on a good outlet. And you will notice, okay, those 2 are the same color, and this one's off. That one's on, you definitely have a problem, and if this one is a different color from this one, you'll see by the legend there what we're looking at. Now, we'll move this one over to the side here, and this will make this a little bit easier to see, and we'll bring up the bad one. Now here's, and I apologize, this was not because of where I took this, it wasn't easily shown. You'll notice that these 2 are not the same as these 2. So this one has a wiring problem, and it's hot and neutral are reversed, which if you're not an electrician, you wouldn't necessarily be familiar with that term, but there's 3 wires that go to an outlet. One goes here, here, and then ground. And I believe it's these 2. Don't hold me to that one, because I'm going to have to get into my own outlets and see what it is involving. But now that's something that definitely is a good use of time, because outlets don't last forever. So this might be a good time to consider replacing some of the outlets. And please, even if you're familiar with how to do it, make sure that you've got the power turned off, because changing it live, to be brutally honest, you're taking your life in your hands. And what's worth more, your life or a $1.50 outlet? And I'll let your spouse fill in that answer. Just make sure you sign a life insurance policy. So that's something very good to do now, because what you don't want to do is start deploying smart home technology and you've got an outlet wired wrong, because what that will mean is you could prematurely cause that device to fail. And then you may have to try to deal with a warranty situation if the vendor will cover it, because they may want that device sent back to them. And if they see that it was a power issue, you may not be better off than you were. So that's a good thing to do, especially when you first move into a house. And then if you've been in the house for a while, but you haven't used some of the outlets. So that's another thing to do as well. So I promise next time we'll start getting into more of the fun side of things, showing the different kind of technology, because it's taken baby steps. And that's the best way I can say it, is taking baby steps, because you will get a lot out of this. And as I've heard with one organization that I'm a member of, you'll get out of it what you put into it, because there's more than just light bulbs. If you've got streaming media receivers, if you've got, the sky is almost the limit. Your own imagination and most likelihood will be the limitation, and your wallet of what you will or won't be able to do. So start working on this spreadsheet. If you don't have an outlet tester like this, now's a good time to go get it. And either as you're doing your planning and checking the outlets, or as you start to go in a particular room, check the outlets. Take a minute or 2 and see where you stand, so that you don't get a rude surprise. And we'll start getting a little bit better the next time. And what this is all going to be a part of, and this is a different book cover than I believe I showed the last time. All this is coming from material that I've got in the book. And at the time these videos are being done, I'm still working on the book, but it's making your home work for you. And if you, for those of you who are a little bit older, you'll remember on Saturday morning the Hanna-Barbera cartoons called The Jetsons, where it was a very futuristic thing for its time. Little did we know, a few years later there would be movies like Star Wars that took it to the next level, and then Star Trek, and the list goes on. But here we are at the time this video is being done in early 2018. We're just starting to see everything come to play. So you can literally walk in a room. Like when I come home at the end of the day, I can, from my vehicle, I can literally give a voice command that says kitchen light on. So when I walk in the house, the kitchen light is on, or I can turn on a certain room in the house, or I can turn on the television. So I think you're starting to see where this is going to go, and it really has a lot of potential. So Appreciate you taking time to watch this video. There will be others. I'm trying to produce at least one to do a week. And if you have any questions, please put those in the comments. I will be looking for those. Please, I'll also appreciate your clicking the subscribe button so you get automatic notification when new videos come out. If you'd like some additional information on top of that, I will be putting together a mailing list. Those are also in the description. And you can, I'll be sending out the word that way when I've got a new video up. And then we'll see where we go from there. But if you've got any questions, please reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to work with you. We'll see you again soon.